Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We are committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Today, our guest is Jason Criddle. He is truly a Renaissance man. He is an author, a specialist in weight loss, and an investor. He develops sales procedures and gives investment advice to individuals. Jason is an expert in branding and performance to assist business owners and entrepreneurs grow their brands and assets. As a fitness trainer, he has assisted thousands of individuals in getting healthier and losing weight. He's the author of several books with provocative titles, including Outgrow, Become Valuable. Jason Criddle, welcome to the show today.
Stephen, I appreciate it, man. That is the coolest like introduction that I've ever had before, man. Like I'm blushing. I don't know if you can see that I'm blushing, but that was pretty cool.
Jason, look, the more I get to know you, because I like to get to know my folks before I talk with them, the more I liked you. So I'm jazzed, brother. I really am. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters. It really helps us attract guests like Jason Criddle. Hey, Jason, as I got to know you, three themes, broadly speaking, kept jumping out at me. And I want to kind of gauge our conversation around these themes. They are health, business, and spirituality. If I'm off my rocker, you tell me. But those are the themes that kept coming up for me. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I would if anything, if we're ranking them, then I'd put spirituality first
Uh-huh.
and then health and business. And they all kind of follow underneath that umbrella with God at the top. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Okay, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to use a different order though to for our listeners to get to know you. Look here. So I know what you're doing now. What was your career before what you're doing now?
Um, before I do what I my career was being a lost, angry, overly aggressive, anxious, and depressed boy who did not have a father that, my father abandoned the family and he left the home. And so I believe that one of the things that's wrong with society right now is the lack of strong men and strong fathers in the house. And so even though I did have, I went through a time in my teenage years where I tried a bunch of different jobs. I started mowing lawns as a kid, and then I stayed in the pool and landscaping industry for about a dozen years. And even though I had a bunch of different jobs, I was really just unhappy with myself. I was unhappy with who I was as a person. And since I didn't have a father figure to guide me through life, then everything about my life was based upon the image of who I was. And I also think that that's how men are. Like we look at our accomplishments, we look at the way we spend our time. And so before I got on this path that I'm on now, I just was unhappy with myself. One of the reasons why I got really good at business, though, and especially in investment side of things, is just like you plowing up the farm. I started out working with my hands and mowing grass. I came from an age where you didn't just get an idea and write it on a napkin and then ask somebody to give you $1 million. You worked your butt off. If you wanted a customer, you went and you knocked on a door. You didn't wait for somebody to come and deliver something to you. We either worked hard or we didn't eat. And that's
Yeah.
the life that I grew up in, man.
Okay. Look, I'm so happy that you were transparent about your early years. This is the Possibility Action Network, and we love to talk about possibility. How did you handle, Jason, your depression, feeling anxious, your insecurities during those early years?
I handled them by acting out upon them.
Hmm.
And I think that I wrote this little thing this morning. I have a ministry that I work with on the weekends, and I like to write motivational quotes during the week to to inspire and then also to start conversations. And I was looking forward to our talk today because I know that this is going to resonate with you. I wrote, the angrier, louder, and more aggressively a man reacts to adversity or threats, the weaker is his mental state and his physical ability to defend himself. The less capable is his capacity for spiritual manifestation and growth, or obtaining and attracting the life and relationships he needs to thrive. Most men pull muscles while they're sitting in a chair, and they masquerade around as being tough while they live in a delusion of believing they can kick everyone's ass. When in reality, they would run out of breath if they got on the floor to do a single push up or drop dead of a heart attack if they tried to run to the end of the block.
Mhm.
The quieter and more logical a man responds to threats without aggression, the more confident he is in his ability to protect himself and his loved ones. The less he has to prove to a man of lower status than that of his own strength or character. Weak men have something to prove, while a valuable man has already proven it.
Yeah.
And so before I had my daughter was my catalyst for change. And I'm glad that I had a daughter first instead of a son first, because I've always believed that if I had a son first, I probably would have stayed that angry guy that was trying to have sex with any woman that would have sex with me, even though it was completely meaningless. Um, I think I would have made excuses and I probably never would have worked on myself in the manner that I did whenever I had my daughter, because the very first time I had my daughter, it was a light bulb moment for me that she was going to grow up and fall in love with the man that I was.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so I often tell people that Emma gave birth to me.
Yeah.
And I always have to remind myself as well that I'm only a 14-year-old father. I'm not just a 40-year-old man. And so I've been growing along with her as well.
That's fantastic. Well, you said a lot there. Let's go back to the angry man because I that really caught me because sometimes you can think, right, that, in defending yourself, you got to be angry and loud and aggressive to ward off attack. But the person who really gets hurt is the person who's expressing the anger. I wish I'd
Right.
met you years ago because that would have helped me a lot. Yeah. So let me ask you something else, Jason. You mentioned your father, and of course, you don't have to answer anything that I ask you. But how have you worked through forgiveness, forgiving him, and if so, how did you do that?
I believe that well, first of all, one of the things that I understand now is
Mhm.
aggression is negative, but anger can be positive. Anger is an emotion that's a catalyst for creativity and change. And so if we get angry enough at something, then that's usually us wanting to change it. And we can utilize that anger to build ourselves rather than tearing down others. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I talk about a lot, Stephen, is whenever we are kids, we idolize our parents. And then whenever we start growing into our teenage and our adult years, then we demonize our parents.
Mm.
And then it really isn't until our parents die that we humanize our parents and that we
Mm.
realize that they were probably doing everything that they could based off of the tools and the environment that they had around them. And you know, I walked away from business in 2018. I walked away from my software company. I sold off the majority stake of it, and my mom had a stroke. And she eventually died in 2021. But I walked away from business to concentrate on family, not just being with my mom or being closer to my mom, but whenever she had a stroke, it was an eye opener for me, that our time is limited. And then whenever she passed away, I was really sad. And then my dad, the last time I saw my dad, I was 12.
Mm,
Well, the last time I saw him, I was 17, but he abandoned our family when I was 12. And then I found him one time when I was 17, and then he abandoned me again.
mm.
And he passed away on September 1st of 2023. So just a few months ago.
I'm
And
sorry for
whenever
your
he
loss. Yeah.
passed away, even though I had not had a relationship with him since I was a kid, what I did do is I waited 27 years for him to call me and explain to me why he abandoned our family.
Mm,
And so even though my daughter helped me really grow through my life, and grow into the man that I was, I went on this podcast. Brother, I'm not even kidding, man. And that's the reason why I believe that God is so beautiful in orchestrating the things that happen in our lives that we will never understand because we're just not strong enough to. I went on a podcast on August 30th called uh it was a a podcast for empowering men, and it was the very first time that I really sat with another man and had a conversation about my anger and about the anger that I carried towards my father. And it was in that podcast, just like 5 or 6 months ago, where I was finally able to forgive myself. I had already forgiven my father for walking away, but I was able to forgive myself for holding on to all this aggression and this fear that I felt inside me for all these years from not having a father there. And brother, my dad, I got a call the next day that my father passed away.
mm,
And I almost believe that whatever my dad was going through in his life, he was holding on for me to forgive 100% of the circumstance that brought me to that point. And so if he had died before I had forgiven myself, then I think I would have just stayed angry. I would have stayed angry at
mm.
myself. I was no longer angry at my father. It was more so, like you said, just a few minutes ago. It was at that moment that I realized that I was holding on to stuff that was just destroying me. It
Mhm.
had nothing to do with my dad anymore. My dad, even though my dad did all these things to affect my life, I'm sure my dad had no idea that it was still affecting me 10, 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
And so it was that moment that I came to terms with God and said that I'm okay with what happened in my childhood. And then on top of that, I'm going to utilize everything that my dad did not do for me to become the best father that I possibly can be to any of my children.
That's that's fantastic. I'm sorry for your loss for sure, both your father and your mother, but you've certainly learned a lot. I want to move to something else about you, Jason, that really grabbed my attention, and that is your decision to become healthier. You've already mentioned your daughter, but I want to make sure people get that because if I got this right, in terms of your weight and being unhealthy, at a high point you were approaching 400 pounds. And
Yes.
then you reverse all of that. So can you tell us about first that decision and how does a man who is at around 400 pounds, become healthier and fitter?
Whenever my daughter started walking, that was a paradigm shift for me that she was watching me.
Hmm.
And like I said, when I held her for the first time, I realized that she was going to fall in love with the man that I was. But when she started walking, that was this thing that I realized that she was probably going to grow up to be overweight and unhappy with her life and smoke cigarettes and make bad decisions because that's all I was doing at the time. And once she started walking, well, when she was born, I went to the gym and I signed up for a couple of months before she was born. I went to the gym and I signed up for a personal training package. I was buying like 10 personal training sessions a month, and I wasn't ready for it yet. Um, and I kind of I shopped around for different trainers. I didn't have the chemistry that I felt that I needed, and I just didn't really do anything with the gym. But now when my daughter started walking, well, we passed those few months, we got well into her life. And so the moment that I decided to start going into the gym, I already had 120 paid for personal training sessions. And so whenever I finally did find a, a trainer that I felt we had the chemistry, well, we went from 2 sessions to 3 sessions to 5 sessions a week. He became my accountability partner. And it's funny because it one of the things that I was able to do, especially as a trainer, is I was really able to help people reinforce taking small steps. A lot of people will try to do intense things rather than consistent things. So whenever somebody has never worked out before, they'll go into the gym and they'll get on every machine and they'll do everything that they can. And then their
Mhm.
body gets so sore that they can't do anything, right? Well, whenever I first decided to start going to the gym, I bought a bicycle. And my goal was to bicycle to the gym every day. And the first time I got on the bicycle, man, I probably got half a mile and I felt like I was gonna die.
Mm.
Like I was like, this was a lot easier whenever I was a kid than it is now. And so what I did is I just worked my way up on the bicycle. The gym was about 3 miles away. It took me weeks to ever get to the gym.
Mhm.
And then whenever I first got to the gym, I went up to the door and I touched the door and I got back on my bike and I went home.
Mhm.
And so then I progressed through there, going into the gym and doing a little bit of work and then coming out. Well, by this time, I had already been seeing progress because I was already biking to the gym. And I had taken a picture of myself at the beginning of my journey. And so over the course of this couple of months, this really helped me to understand our need to see progress in our lives in order to be motivated to keep going. Because
Mhm.
even though we question ourselves, am I getting in shape? Do I look any different? Because we see ourselves in the mirror every day. But then somebody says, hey, you look pretty good. You've been working out. Your shoulders look a little bit better. Well, I learned that whenever you take this picture and you take this picture and you compare them, well, not only can you compare how you look, you can also compare the decisions that you made in between that time.
Yeah.
And so you know that if you got from point A to point B making X amount of decisions, then you can increase the positivity in the decisions that you're making to have a more positive outcome before the next progress picture. So it really just came down to being willing to take small steps, being willing to get on a bicycle and feel like I was going to die, you know,
Mhm.
and then also coming to terms with the fact that up until that point in my life, the one of the reasons why I was so anxious about the future and so depressed about the past is because I had never challenged myself. And I also think that that's one of the big things that goes on in cyberbullying. Uh, People are disconnected from their physiology. People make problems in their head that don't exist, and then they act out on those problems that don't exist. And so they end up creating a negative environment in their reality, even though that negativity really only started in their head. Well, especially as a man, you need to be challenging yourself to be becoming better every day. And if you're completely out of touch with your body, well, that's the first place that you can challenge yourself.
Mhm.
Making the decision to get on the floor and do 10 push-ups, especially when you can only do it one push-up at a time,
Mhm.
and you make that promise to yourself to do it every day, that's what makes you a man. And if
Mhm.
you're not willing to follow through on those promises that you make to yourself, then eventually you're going to get some point in life where you're probably going to have psychosis
Mhm.
or borderline personality disorder all other things that can happen in the brain because you've cluttered it so full of unbroken promises that you made to yourself and you never followed through on, to the point to where you will actually live in that negative false environment that you created for yourself.
Hmm. So the gym was important to you, and you did it. But I also found the word nutritionists associated with you. Tell me about that. And how did that figure in to your weight loss journey and your becoming healthier journey?
When I first started trying to lose weight, I would go get on a treadmill and I would starve myself. And that never worked. And the reason why it doesn't work is because all calories that we burn on a daily basis are predicated upon the amount of muscle that we have on our body. And so if you don't have muscle, then you don't have a healthy body. And what people will do whenever they try to lose weight or get in shape is they follow what I call it they said science. People
Hmm.
say, "Oh, well they said this." Well, they said that. But there's no real basis of education for what they said. It's just something that they heard. It was not until I learned about protein and macronutrients that I really had a change, because I like to use the 2000 calorie a day diet as a preface for this explanation because we see it on every box that we look at. If somebody is eating 2000 calories a day, and the majority of Americans' diets are fat and carbs and almost little protein, little a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of fruit. Well, what'll happen is, let's say your body's burning 2000 calories a day. Well, and then you go to the gym and you start getting on the treadmill. Well, you'll actually start burning off excess water, and then your body will start attacking muscle, because muscle only has 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. It's a whole lot easier for your body to burn off muscle than it is for it to burn fat. So if you go an entire month of eating your 2000 calories of fat and carbs, and you're not lifting weights and you're not taking in protein, then at the end of that month, even though you're eating your 2000 calorie a day diet, your body might only be burning 1800 calories a day now. And then you go another month, and then you get to the end of that month, you're still eating your 2000 calories a day, but now your body's only burning 1600 calories a day. The body plateaus, and then someone does not grow. Somebody doesn't see the results that they thought that they were going to see. And usually at this time, somebody gives up on the gym. They say,
Hmm.
"Oh, that didn't work. That diet didn't work. The exercise didn't work. The personal training didn't work." Whenever you start taking in adequate amounts of protein and adequate amounts of vegetables and water, your body will start to change, even if you never go into the gym.
Hmm.
And not only will the body start to change, people, when they're trying to get in shape, they take things out of their diet, when in reality, the human body needs more things. And
Hmm.
so all the base ingredients that we eat on a regular basis are not as important as shilajit or potassium, or taking in minerals and enzymes and vitamins that will allow the mitochondria in your cell to wake up to want to experience more things. There's a reason why whenever someone eats a salad, then they're all day long, especially if they have never had a salad or they haven't eaten a salad in a while, it immediately in their mind they go, "Oh, well, I ate this salad. I want to do something else healthy," because they're taking in living food. Not
Hmm.
only is the food alive, but it communicates with us because it has an energy signature inside it.
Hmm.
Well, the food that was prepared by someone that hates their job, that works in a packing plant, that energy vibration lives inside that food. So when you eat
Uh-huh.
that food that was prepared by someone who is mad at their own life, then you're taking in their energy signature. Whenever you're taking in food that was created and nourished by God, and it had sunlight absorbed into it, it has minerals and
Hmm.
vitamins, and you eat that food, it communicates with your body. And that was one of the things that I learned as I started getting in shape is cravings that we have are our body telling us that we need something. And
Mm,
so if somebody's craving salt, if somebody's craving meat, if somebody's craving vegetables, it's because their body is in need of it. Well, the main reason why people don't eat vegetables is because they don't eat vegetables. And
mm,
it's that simple. It isn't until they make the decision to eat something healthy that their body tells them you're missing nutrients.
mm,
And so then instead of getting a craving for Taco Bell, you get a craving for a salad because your body says, hey, Jason, you put all these nutrients in me earlier today, and I don't have those nutrients right now. If you want to keep feeling this way, then you need to reabsorb those nutrients. It's the reason why a salad makes us full. And it's the reason why we can eat an entire bag of potato chips because there's no nutrients absorbed in the potato chips. It's also the reason why when people hear a conversation like this, they feel spiritually full.
mm, mm,
Or they can sit down and they can binge watch a streaming show all day because there's no nutrients inside that show. But when they hear this, they can literally turn the TV off for the rest of the day and they can reflect on the nutrients that absorbed from this conversation.
mhm. And the good news is, I mean, not only are you saying, using words, that it's possible to become healthier, you've demonstrated this in your own body, in your own life. That's amazing. So now, let me ask you this, Jason, is there a link, a correlation between successful in business and being a healthy, physically healthy person? And I'm not saying now, I'm not saying that just because a person may have an illness, they can't be successful, but is there a correlation between being fit, being healthy, and business success or education success?
I believe that a person can become successful in anything on accident at
Uh-huh.
any time. A person can win the lottery and they can become rich. But the reason why the person loses all that money is because they never learned how to build wealth.
Mm,
So they became rich before they built wealth. A person that has the ability to take their body from being unhealthy to healthy, they have to become average first.
mm,
So a person that goes from unhealthy to healthy, unhealthy to athlete, they have to become average first. So whenever I look at a person that is, and I can even use myself as an example because I don't want anybody to feel offended. If I look at the person that started Smarter, that only built Smarter, my company, up to a certain level, and I compare that person to the man that runs the $100 million company today that
mm,
has the multiple billion-dollar acquisition in the top of his mind, I know that that person that I used to be could have never gotten here
mhm,
because those are two completely different people.
mhm,
Even last night, I was sitting in the chair and yesterday I had a full day. We're in the middle of a hiring spree. Bringing on new associates. I just made a partnership with Porsche. I'm buying vehicles for my top sales leaders. And yesterday I had 26 phone calls. I have not had 26 phone calls in a day in a long time. And yesterday, when I finally got the chance to relax, I sat down in the chair. And as soon as I sat down, my daughter said, Dad, are we making burgers tonight? And then I
mhm,
went like this. I said, Baby, I'm so tired. I don't feel like cooking anything. And then I got up and I went in the kitchen and I cooked
mm,
because I always say the first response is the conditioned response. And then the second response is the real you. So you see somebody walking down the street and they're over shape, or they're out of shape. And then the first thing that somebody might think is, oh, well, look at that out of shape person. They're wasting their time. But then they go, You know what? Good for them.
Mm.
So when my daughter asked me, Dad, are you still making burgers tonight? The first response was that old guy that would have sat in that chair and
Mhm.
decided to watch TV. But before I could even finish the sentence, the guy that's working towards the $1 billion acquisition, he took over and he
Mhm.
started walking into the kitchen to start making food for his family because I'm a retired chef. I cook all the meals. And one of the reasons why my food is so good is because I love my family and I love cooking. And so
That's
I
great.
put my own energy signature into the food that we eat.
Uh-huh.
Whenever I don't cook, there's a completely different energy inside the house. And so, absolutely, there is a correlation between health, which could be healthy in mind, not necessarily going to the gym and doing a bodybuilding regimen.
Mhm.
But in order for you to be healthy in mind, you cannot be healthy in mind unless you're healthy in body. Regardless of how happy we think we are, if we're disconnected from our physiology, if we don't have any real basis for a real challenge besides the made up stuff that we make in our head, then no, we can't be successful. And one of the reasons why I like working out with athletes or coaches,
Mhm.
or sorry, not working out, but working with, I enjoy working with athletes, coaches, anybody that's in physically good shape. I enjoy working with them because they are usually willing to follow through
Mhm.
on reaching a goal more so than a person who is not in shape or not healthy. I
Mhm.
have found that the physical characteristics of our body will limit the spiritual, mental, and emotional growth that we could go through on reaching any goal. So,
Yeah.
yes, it's
Yeah.
absolutely correlated.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so this is good news for anyone listening or watching. It's possible to become healthier. If weight loss is a part of that for you, it's possible. Okay, but Jason, I gotta talk to you about something else that's coming through very strong with you, and that is, and you don't shy away from it. It's possible to create multiple streams of income. Some people are wondering, well, I'm just trying to create one stream. Where did you start on your journey to becoming not only healthier physically, but financially fit? Where did you start?
When I was a kid, I mowed lawns. I started at 10, and then by the time I was 12, I had two adults working for me, and I was making more money than my mom.
Wow.
And I had two adults working for me because I didn't have a driver's license and we needed to drive our lawn equipment around. And so at a very early age, I realized that my success did not come from my hard work as much as it came from me paying other people. And so throughout my entire life, while most people are always out trying to make a paycheck, I was always out trying to pay other people.
That's too powerful to move quickly, Jason. I got to ask you now. That's amazing. For a kid to actually see that is just amazing to me. Where do you think that idea came from? That one is good, you working and mowing the lawn and getting $1, but to have some other people mowing other lawns, getting $2 and you share. Where did that come from for you?
If you back up just a few years earlier, when I was
Mm,
9, I believe that's when I really developed my consciousness.
mm,
By the time I was 9, I realized that my parents were stupid and they made bad decisions. And they were always fighting each other. They were both abusive. Every single person that I knew, every kid that I knew, their parents were alcoholics. They watched TV and they were going through divorces. But every one of them only fought about the things they couldn't achieve.
mm.
And then on top of them only fighting about things that they couldn't achieve, they never did anything to achieve them. And so they would complain that they weren't making enough money, but they would never do anything to try and make more money. And so my dad was working and my mom stayed at home. And so even though they always fought about not having income, well, at one point my mom started working. And whenever my mom started working, well, we went from living in a car to buying a house. So I realized that them two working together to produce income and bring more money into the family, it helped. It helped them grow. And so you fast forward, throughout my teenage years, I kept mowing lawns. And then by the time I turned like 17 or 18, I started cleaning swimming pools. Even though my time eventually became limited, there was a time when I had to buy another truck and I had to hire somebody else, which goes into the spiritual aspect of it because I did something on faith, which was very profound. I kept telling myself that I was too busy and that I needed help, but I didn't find the help until I bought the second truck. I
Mm.
think that if I had just kept saying I needed help, then it never would have happened. But whenever I told God, God, I have this opportunity to buy this second truck, I'm going to have faith that when I buy the second truck, you are going to give me the ability to pay that note at the end of the month. And the very day that I bought the truck, the guy that I needed to come and help me, he showed up. And then all of a sudden,
Wow.
more work came. Whenever I got out of the pool and landscaping industry and I started getting in shape, I became a trainer.
Mm.
And the same thing happened. When I was a trainer, I was getting paid every 30 minutes. And then there were gaps in my schedule where I didn't get paid, but I was always at the gym. And so I would have 30 minutes here where I was busy, and then an hour would go by where not, and then I would have this time. And so before you know it, I'm in the gym all the time. I'm only getting paid part of the time, and I'm tired. And so I decided to start, instead of holding back on my knowledge as a personal trainer, I decided to start teaching everybody everything that I knew. Instead of trying to hold on to that revenue for a year, I started telling people by the time we get through 90 days, you're going to know enough to be a trainer. And the only way that I was able to do that is I stopped showing up at the gym all day. And then I started telling my clients, I'm going to be at the studio from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then all my clients came to the gym at once. I was making the same amount of money, but everybody was showing up in 2 hours. And so then I had the rest of my day in order to do more stuff, in order to fill it with more activity. And so somewhere along the way in my fitness journey, somebody said, Jason, write a book. And
Mm.
so I wrote a book
What was
and
the
I put
title of
that
the
book.
first book? What was the title of your first book? Your first
The
book.
first book was Trainer to Trillionaire.
That's it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I said that I was going to create the world's first $1 trillion company, and I was going to do it by giving all the money back to the people that helped me build it. And so I created that first book and I put that book online. And then that book started making sales no matter where I was throughout the day. And of course, as an author, I don't even call myself an author now. I have 19 books out on the market. I haven't written
Whoa.
one in years. I haven't
Uh-huh.
written one in years, but I don't identify as an author. But whenever I came out with that first book, I told everybody I was an author and I wanted everybody to read my book because to me, my book was the best book. My book is better than everybody else's. And so whenever I would go to publishing companies and I would say, hey, can you help me publish my book? Or I would ask bookstores to help me put my book on the shelf, nobody cared because I'm sitting here talking about how amazing my book is. Nobody cared about my book.
Mm.
And so then I helped somebody else write a book because I had the knowledge of writing a book. And then I helped somebody else write a book. And so then my very first scalable company was a publishing company.
Is that
And
right?
I
Wow.
discovered that every single time I helped somebody put a book out on the market, then I made money regardless of what I was doing with the rest of my day. And that's when I really realized that a book is an asset. And so I built up a publishing company that helped publish over 100 books. I don't do publishing anymore, really. I'll still help people put out their books, but my first scalable company was a publishing company.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So how do you, because you also say that you can help other people, achieve financial fitness. How do you do that? How do you help support other people in achieving their goals in finances?
the book led to me building websites. And whenever I would walk into a networking event, I was the only person in there that had lost a lot of weight. I was the only person in there that helped people lose a lot of weight. I was the only person in there with a book. I was the only person in there with a website.
Mm.
And I realized that having a compelling story and having infrastructure online to take a payment, and then having in a book that would make you be seen as an authority figure really sets you apart from anybody that would otherwise be your competition.
Wow.
And so eventually I wisened up because I was spending all my time building websites. And even though I knew what a customer needed, they were wasting all my time telling me what they wanted. And I realized after a while that the most progressive software companies in the world had one product that they worked on, not custom building anything. There's a reason why web developers are broke, and Snapchat has the most basic app, but they're making billions of dollars because that web developer is he's utilizing his time and running out of his time to build something that's not scalable. And all my customers at the time, they were all spending money on advertising that wasn't working. They all needed a book. They all needed that authority, but most of them were, they would all tell me that 90% of their business came from repeat and referral business, but they weren't getting any referrals. So even though the majority of their business came from referrals, they were not getting referrals. Well, why are you not getting referrals? Well, I told that guy that if he sent me a client, then I would give him 10%. And then whenever that guy sent me that client, I was broke and I needed the money. So I didn't tell him that I had that customer. And I did not follow through on the promise of giving that man 10%. And that's where the Smarter App company came from. I created an affiliate product, a multi-level generational affiliate marketplace that would take the place of the handshake, so that whenever somebody purchased your products or service through a referral, then the app took care of everything. So instead of the business getting paid first, the person that made the referral got paid pretty much at the same time. And then we as a company were in charge. So now the company takes place of the handshake. And then
Wow.
the app takes place of the transaction. And eventually I just started providing, I started just taking all of these services that I had learned really helped a business owner grow, and I turned them into products. And so even when we started the Smarter App company, I didn't start it thinking that it would be $100 million company one day. I
Mm.
started it so that I could help the people that I was working with in the room. But then eventually I realized that this could be scaled,
Yeah.
and we just grew it into a progressive software company.
That's amazing. I heard about a guy, you seem to be one of those guys, who said that he could make money just walking down the street or anything. So is this a gift? How do you see this? I mean, from when you were 9 years old, things began to just download for you. Is this a gift, would you say? I mean, how do you explain this?
I think I think that we have to make certain decisions for an idea to be seated in us. And so once we get to a point to where we have made effective decisions that allow God to realize that we have the ability to follow through to get to the next experience, then we will be seeded with information. We can even call that the basis of evolution.
Mm.
Evolution is not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of who takes the information right now and then utilizes that information to survive.
Huh.
And so I believe the exact same thing. Whenever your average person walks down the street,
Mhm.
they're probably broke. They might have anxiety or depression. They uh, are probably unhappy with themselves. They're probably out of shape. These are generalizations of our population. And then at the same time, they're stuck in survival mode and they can only think about today because they don't have enough money or resources to think about tomorrow or to think about their dreams. Well, I don't clock in or out. When I wake up in the morning, I'm Jason Criddle. And when I go to bed at night, I'm Jason Criddle. And I spend my time loving my family, getting in shape, staying in shape, helping people build businesses. But all I have to do is communicate. Usually, when I walk into a room, not only do I know that I'm more than likely in better shape than anybody in there, I also know that I carry within me opportunities for that person to make money. I make money as a byproduct, so I don't have to sell anything.
Mhm.
People buy things from me, especially when they find out who I am. So if I walk into a room, when people hear me talk, when people find out who I am, then all of a sudden, even if I'm in a room with 1,000 people, I'm the one person in that room that can make somebody more money. I can help them become better in their relationships as a mother, a father, a husband, a wife. I can help them get in shape. I can help them do just about anything that they would otherwise be struggling with. And I
Mhm.
know this about myself. And I know it so much that I carry an energy signature with me that make other people realize who I am. So when somebody says, "Hey, how are you?" I don't respond with, "Fine, how are you?" If somebody says, "Hey, how are you?" they're going to find out. And then once I start talking, my conversation with them gets so deep so fast that they've never experienced a conversation like it. So they have to start talking to me about the things that are troubling them. They have to start talking to me about being broke or being out of shape. And since
Mhm.
I'm in a room with 1,000 people, and since I talk louder and with more confidence and more charismatically than anybody else in the room, everybody in the room starts to listen.
Uh-huh. Well, sounds like you know what you know for sure. But look here, there's another thing, a couple of other things we got to get to. But I got to ask you this because, I mean, just as I said, I get to know my people before I talk to them. With all that you do, I'm wondering, when does he find the time? So time management, how do you manage all of this stuff, plus your family, your little girl, your son, your wife? Come on, whoa.
uh Discipline gives you time.
Uh-huh.
And so when somebody hears that I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning so I can go to the gym, all they think about is, well, I would never have the time to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym. But the reason why I have my time with my family is because I wake up in the morning at 3 o'clock and go to the gym. And so I follow a sleep pattern that's been affecting me for a long time. I wake up at 3, I'm done with the gym by 5 or 6. I come back home and I lay down for an hour or two and I take a nap. Then I get up at 9 and I start my day. From 9 till about 1 or 2, my time is mine and I'm spending time with my family. I'm homeschooling my daughter. I'm playing with my son. And then my schedule opens up around 1 o'clock from about 4 o'clock. And that's when I usually do calls or I do PR. I also pick that time because my son is taking a nap.
Mm.
And so whenever my son wakes up, usually around 4 or 5 o'clock, I start getting tired again and I'll lay down for about 30 minutes to 60 minutes and I'll rest a little bit. And I wake back up and then I spend the rest of my time with my family until I go to bed around 9 or 10. And so the main reason why I have all this time is because I'm disciplined enough to manage my time effectively. And then everything that I do is scalable. So if you and me were on this call right now, well, this is this is fun. I like to ask people, how much money do you make when you're not working?
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much money I've made since we've been on this call, but I know that I have made money because I have multiple companies out there that are making income. And then everything that they're buying is scalable and it doesn't
Mhm.
require my time. in order to get that thing. And so that even leads back into the question you asked earlier. How does somebody develop multiple streams of income? You need to make sure that when your customer comes to you, when your customer makes a purchase, whenever that product or service is delivered to that customer, that you are not involved at all.
Mm.
So that means you need to have infrastructure in place to take a payment. You need to have education in place to allow someone to make an educated decision without you needing to be involved. And then the product or service needs to be delivered without your input. So you need to have other people in place to do that for you, or you need to be selling something digitally that can just be sent to them
Mhm.
via PDF or some kind of email or a digital file, or they're getting access to a piece of software that they then build on their own, and you're not required to interfere with that process.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you gain experience in software? I mean, that's a whole nother ball of wax. How did you get into that and gain experience? And
When I was a kid, my dad worked for a company that built computers for banks. A lot of people don't
mm,
know that the internet was built for processing bank transactions.
mhm.
And it was actually called BankNet whenever it first started. And my dad worked for a company called Bank Tech. And they built check sorters, databases, just anything that a bank would need in order to process transactions and communicate with other banks. And so from the time I was a little kid, uh, I was always playing around with DOS, and then I was always building my own computers. My dad would always have parts at home, and we would build our own computer systems. And I always tell people that learning to code and learning how to build a computer helped me learn how to think,
Wow.
because you would literally have something that was just an empty board, and you
Uh,
knew what you wanted to build, but you had to put together the pieces in order to make that thing work. Whenever I became older and I built that first website, it wasn't it wasn't necessarily me building it. I had a developer that helped me build it.
mhm.
And then I asked that developer, I was like, hey, I have a guy that says he wants a website like mine. Can you build a website like mine? And then he said, yeah. And then I had 10 more customers, and I would go back to my developer and I'd say, hey, can you build websites like me? Eventually, I asked my web developers, I'm like, hey, I have customers that need a referral system. Can we build this app? And
Mm.
so I don't code now. I know enough about code to where I can work us through bugs. I know enough about code to where I can do testing, but I'm just that little 10-year-old boy that realized that if I want to be successful, I need to be paying these guys to do what they're good at. And
Mhm.
so I don't try to build software. I pay people to
Yeah,
build software.
gotcha. And look, I know faith comes up. If faith is big for you, you started the podcast talking about faith. So I want to go into, I'm going to call it spirituality here. You said something, I found it. You said, a lot of people are stuck in a false reality of despair. If I got that right, Jason, what do you mean by that? Stuck in a false reality of despair.
What we were talking about earlier and a couple of times through this call, um, the human mind needs problems to solve. And it's part of our evolutionary makeup, because we used to fight off lions and tigers and bears to stay alive. But now there's no lions and tigers and bears. As a matter of fact, when we wake up, we live in an environment where just about all of our needs are taken care of. We have companies, we have products. Everything that we need is there for us to survive. But the innate desire for the body to think its way through survival, it still exists. It's still there. And so whenever we wake up and we don't have problems to solve, then our mind creates problems. It
Mm.
it goes, "Hey, What do you think my spouse was dreaming about? And what do you think that dream was? I'm going to get angry at my spouse for having a dream that might not even exist. And then on top of that, they acted out on things that haven't existed yet. That's called fear.
Mm,
And so we all live in a perpetual state of fear in one way or another because we're looking for something to go wrong.
mhm.
And then when we cannot fix what is not going wrong, then we're in despair.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have no hope for the future because we don't know what we cannot solve.
Mm,
And that is the state of society right now.
mm. Yeah. You also make some other bold statements. We don't have time to probe all of it. I got to get you back. But you've said, it's possible to create whatever you want. I think I saw that in connection with you. So you still take that stand. It's possible to create whatever you want.
That all comes down to the decisions that we make for the value that we bring to others. And
Uh-huh.
I said it earlier, um, a saying I like to use that people try to become successful before they become valuable.
Mm, mm,
Um, an example, my daughter, I have a Porsche, and my daughter loves my Porsche. As a matter of fact, I've always collected cars. I've always had nice cars, but it wasn't until I got my Porsche that my daughter really started to understand my love for cars. And so now she
mm.
wants my Porsche. And so one of the things that, and she's 14 and she keeps saying that's going to be her first car. Like she calls my Porsche her car. And so since she loves Porsche and since I love Porsche, we spend a lot of time looking at Porsches online. I made a relationship with Porsche to buy Porsches for my sales leaders. Um, my daughter and I were having a conversation, and she said, "How much is the new Porsche that you want?" Well, I want like five of them, but one of the Porsches that I do want is for sale right now in Dallas, and it's $254,900. And so my daughter, whenever I she asked me how much is the Porsche that you want,
Mm.
I said it's $254,900. And my daughter went, she goes, "That's so expensive." She said, "I can't afford that. How could anybody ever afford that Porsche?" And I said, if you want the Porsche, then you do not ever say, "I can't afford that Porsche."
Mm.
You instead say, what changes do I have to make to myself to be a person that can afford that Porsche?
That's
So
huge.
we can have anything that we want once we realize that the things that we want are not happening because we are not being the person needed to obtain those things. People
Uh,
hear the law of attraction and they think that they attract what they want. We attract what we are.
mm. Okay. Wow. There's so much more there, but I'm not going to go deeper into that. There's one more area though that I just want to throw out at you because I looked at your books. In fact, I bought Trainer to Trillionaire. So I want to see what Jason is up to. So I said I want to buy his books. I did. And look here, I stopped counting at 7, but you said you wrote 19. So look, that's just amazing. I just want to throw a couple of titles at you, Jason. And if you recall, I know you wrote these way back, some not way back, some as early as 2014 and the like. So, but I just wanted to just give us a glimpse of what did you try to show in this book? Are you up to that? I'll just give you the title and then tell us
Yeah,
what you tried to
yeah,
show
go
in the
for it.
book. Okay, this one, I love the title, Outgrow, Become Valuable. And there's some other words associated with it. What do you try to show in Outgrow, Become Valuable?
So Outgrow was a marketing ploy. It was a rewrite of Trainer to Trillionaire because I realized, and now there's a lot more tidbits in there, I often tell people I became an author before I became a writer. Uh, Even though I've always been really good at communicating, it wasn't until I found my voice that I really started to put good books out. But whenever I put out Trainer to Trillionaire, everybody thought it was a book about personal training, but it was really supposed to be a book about my life and my growth through my life. And so I rewrote it. I made it more for everybody rather than
Mm,
just talking a lot about my personal training. And then I put in there that we need to constantly be in a state of outdoing ourselves. And
mm,
so whenever I was coaching, I had a whiteboard on the wall. And every single time my clients would come in, I would write down the workout and the what we were working on that day. This is the main workout. These are some of the this is some of the structure that we're going to go through this workout. And then every single person, they went to that board and they looked at it. That way, whenever they came into the gym, they knew what we were going to be doing that day. On the top of the board, written in permanent marker on accident, by the way, because I didn't know I was using a permanent marker instead of a dry erase. I wrote better than yesterday.
mm,
And so better than yesterday became a philosophy for how we worked out. You're not trying to be better than anybody else in here. Your goal is to be better than you were yesterday. And
mm,
so I took that, and that's my philosophy for life. All I'm trying to accomplish today is outdoing, outgrowing, outlasting, outliving the person that I was yesterday. And then on top of that, there are also things that I had to get over. I was addicted to marijuana at one point. I was never an alcoholic, but I did enjoy alcohol to a certain extent at a certain point in my life, but I don't take in any substances. And so there's a lot of things like watching TV or sitting down and relaxing or whatever it is. And so when I wake up in the morning, I literally tell myself, these are all the things that I want to do today. And then all those things that I know are going to hold me back from being better, I tell myself, and then all those things, I'll I'll consider doing those things tomorrow. But
mm.
today I have to concentrate on being better today. And then all that negative stuff, I'll consider doing that tomorrow. Well, what happens tomorrow when I wake up? I make the
Yeah,
decision that I'm going to spend today working on all these things that help my life positively grow
yeah,
today. And anything that would keep me from growth, I'll worry about that tomorrow. And
yeah,
I've just been doing that for years.
yeah. That's great. And I tell you, I hear you, I feel you. There's something spiritual there. A lot of individuals don't have that kind of insight. That's amazing. Two more books, I'll let you go. How about that? Two more books? I'll just
Sure.
pick up the ones that the titles just kind of grab me. Breaking the laws of attraction, changing vocabulary, changes circumstances. What do you want us to get from that? I said, boy, that's a juicy title.
Yes. Yeah. Our life is a reflection of the conversations that we have on a regular basis and who we have them with.
Mm,
So if you work at a regular job and your entire basis of conversation is, hey, how are you? Here's your change. And then you get off work. And then when you get off work, you sit down and you watch TV. Well, you're not having any conversations that would allow you to grow. So if you want to build a future for yourself, in the beginning was the Word, and the
yeah.
Word was God. And so we have to physically voice, whether it's in our head, in our hearts, or through our mouths, we have to physically tell the universe what it is that we want. And then we have to repeat it on a regular basis. So whenever someone says, oh, I want to listen to affirmations, or I stand in the mirror and I say, I'm good enough, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I guess the affirmations can help you believe a certain thing about yourself to a certain extent, but nobody will ever become rich by standing in the mirror and saying, I'm rich. $1 million cannot appear on your kitchen table unless you are building a business that has the infrastructure that would allow that $1 million to appear. In order for that to happen, you're going to have to start talking about it. You're going to have to find people that can help you do it. You're going to have to talk to those people about your goals. So if your conversations are about the weather and what was on TV last night, you're not going to get as far as a person like me that wakes up determined to have conversations like this all day. And if I'm not having a conversation like this, then I don't even open my mouth because it's not interesting to me. So
Okay.
the first step to change is to start having conversations about it and to surround yourself with people that you can have those conversations with.
Gotcha. Okay, this is the last one. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, but this is the last title. I love this title. I've never seen a title. I said, whoa, where did he get this title? Here it is, Jason. Everybody poops in their pants at least once in a lifetime. Whoa.
Whenever my daughter was a kid and she was going through potty training, um, we read that book, Everybody Poops. It's a children's book, right? And it teaches babies about how everything on the planet poops. But when my daughter was about 5, I was sitting down one day and we were laughing because I was telling her stories about friends of mine that might have pooped in their pants due to whatever accident that happened. You know, they were drunk or they were hungover or they were sick or whatever, but I was really just trying to make my daughter laugh. And so, in order to have a conversation about a person that drank a bunch of tequila the night before and then they accidentally sharded in a line at the airport, I had to make it funny for my 5-year-old daughter. And
Mm,
so that ended up being that book. And it's not really a kid's book. It's made more for adults. But the entire purpose is just to make people laugh, man.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
every
yeah,
one of us, we do have an accident at some point in our life. You know,
yeah.
and then there's a principle behind it about coming out on top. But here, you're going to appreciate this, Stephen, because I'm actually working on a sequel to that book. Do you want to know the title?
Yes, please.
Number 2.
Okay, Jason, look, I've kept you longer, but there's just so much I want to talk to you about. We don't have enough time in this segment. I want you to know that I really appreciate our time together today.
Of course. And you know what? I would be more than happy to record at any time. So if you ever want me on again, then we can go deeper into any topic. We can do it on a regular basis. It's all up to you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, with that, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Jason Criddle. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day.
You are not alone, just keep